As Uma said, my name is Jyoti, and I have done a lot of transitions. So I'm just trying to share some of the things that I learned. So when I look at my career journey, I think it's like a paper aeroplane. Even if I do the perfect math and the trajectory and the angles, I always end up, there's always unexpected twists and turns. So to summarize, I basically did my bachelor's in India, did some job, then moved to US. This was the first aeroplane which I basically threw, was very excited, but didn't plan. My only criteria was it had to be a sunny state. I had no support system, and I basically had one semester of tuition fees. What I really had was I was always up to date with the latest learnings. And at that time, it was database. So I was a little more good, better than my other classmates. So I ended up having RAs and TAs and in state. So I survived, but a lot of lessons on planning better. Then I did a couple of jobs. I spent a decade there and did multiple hats. I joined as a software tester, did development, became a manager. And then I actually was very interested in, I always was involved in community projects. So I actually shifted to a non-tech, non-profit organization. A lot of lessons learned on iterations and adaptability and flexibility, which I'll share with you. And then I took a small break to take care of my baby. And just when I was ready to go back, my husband got a job in a different state. We were already in transition, so it made sense for us to do it. Finally got everybody settled, and then came COVID. And so we basically literally moved into a new house in December, and in February, everything shut down. So literally everybody was back at home. And so my small break became a longer disruption. And then I really, even in nonprofit, what I brought was my tech, right? And my software skills. So I wanted to go back to the software, to the corporate world. But at that time, because this was a disruption that had happened, and because of personal things, I had not paid attention to the latest in tech. My confidence was quite low, right? So, but I became a technical program manager, and that was because of my support system. And I'll talk a little more about resiliency and support systems. So, why do we think it's a paper aeroplane? So I talked about unexpected twists and turns, right? But every time I launched my career or reinvented myself, I had to be creative. I had to reinvent myself. I had to iterate and learn new things. And every time there's an optimism, right? That I can do it. And when I think about imagination, I think about my passions, my dreams, and I brought that all together. And that's why I think my journey has been like a paper aeroplane. And a couple of things I learned for it, and I'm going to iterate more on it. So I'm going to just run through this slide. Support system, take chances, continuous learning, storytelling, and be flexible and adaptable. But most important of all, which is in bold, is be kind and believe in yourself. So let me tell you what I mean by that. I love this quote from John Adams, which says that you should know how to make a living, but also how to live, right? And the first thing that I had to relied on was my support system. So when I was in Microsoft, I always relied on my mentors. Every career transitions that I was successful was because of my guidance from my mentors. When I was leading teams, I had allies, right? These allies were not there to just support all my things, but also because I wanted to get feedback, right? If they are not convinced that what I'm doing is going to work, how do I convince others, right? And I was also mentored. So I learned a lot from my mentees. But I think the most support system that I helped was when I went back to job after the career break. As I told you, my confidence was a little low. I joined a lot of networks on back to work for women and mothers. And we were there for each other. We actually created subgroups and taught ourselves stuff. Of course, the network gave me a lot of opportunities and options, but there is still, especially if the career break is longer, there's still a stigma around it. You get more rejections, your resume doesn't get picked up. So we were there to cheer one up, celebrate successes, encourage each other through failures. And I think I was able to get back because of the support system that I built. And of course, my family was there. The second thing I learned was, of course, continuous learning. As I said, I always like to stay, it's a dynamic landscape, whether it's tech or any other industry. And I always stayed up to date with all my, the latest. But when I'm talking about here, I'm talking about how to leave, right? For me, it was finances. For me, finance was a monster that I would avoid and not looking into much. And I think I learned the lesson when I moved from Microsoft to nonprofit, right? I had planned everything, but I had not looked at, I mean, I did the basics like 401k and stuff like that. But I had not done the math to actually transition to where there's not a constant salary coming in. Fortunately, at that time, my husband jumped in and we did the math, and this almost stopped me from moving to do my work on my passion, right? But I learned the lesson, and what I realized is it's like a small kid going on an escalator, right? The first time it looks like a monster, it's overwhelming, you don't know what you're doing. You look at others, you try it out, but once you start doing it, it's like second nature. You don't need boot camp for this. It's just looking at your own expenses and salary and all your investments, and there's a pattern emerging. It's easy. For me, it was finance. For a lot of you, it may not be finance. I remember Shilpi yesterday saying she had to go back to a coach to learn new strategies to succeed at her coach, right? So it could be some other skills, but don't only focus on a tech, which is very important on your skill set, but also what you need. Learn new skills based on that. The third thing I wanted to focus is storytelling, and it actually, when I again went back to job, is when this was an important thing. I'm an engineer, so I only state the facts, right? So when I said I manage programs and events, so one of my people in my network was looking at my resume and said, "So what did you do?" So I repeated myself, and she said, "What did you do?" And I'm like, "Is she not listening?" So I started. So she said, "Are you do? So you did the exact same thing that your predecessor did." And then I got defensive. No, I automated the whole system. There was so much chaos. I connected all the apps. The chaos was because of there were so many changes. Now one change happens, it propagates everywhere. I brought coordinate. I improved processes. I made coordination better. I implemented change management. I told everything I did, and I said, she said, looking at your resume, it doesn't look like you did any of these things, right? It just said you managed programs and events. So, and I remember Parna mentioning that what she brought her to her management was promotions, right? She promoted people, but if she just says, I successfully manage careers, it doesn't bring. So when you go back, so what I would say is look at your resume as to what is your unique contribution? What did you bring to your table? What impact we brought, and what you can bring to the next company. So that was one of the important skill set I learned. This one, actually, I got it from LinkedIn, but I thought this was very appropriate for this. Your first workout will be bad, but you can't make your hundreds without making your first. This is, I had to take chances. So where this is again, one thing I'm really scared of unknowns, right? And somebody yesterday mentioned stillness is so scary, and I was. But what I thought myself was the agile scrum symbol thing, fail fast and iterate, right? We all do this agile in our companies. Let's implement it in our life, right? So for me, it was not a failure that would define my life. It was a failure that I could learn from. And one of the things I did was when I went to pick the nonprofit, I had learned my lesson from my master's, so I did not take the first opportunity that came. I took chances. I volunteered at multiple places. I reached out to people I didn't know. I tried out multiple things. I knew I failed fast. I iterated. Even when I got the nonprofit place I really wanted, they had so much work, but I knew what I could bring to the table. I knew what I was passionate about and my values. And within that parameter, I took chances. And I would suggest you also to take those baby steps. You don't have to be fearless like they have was saying, but take small baby steps, one step in front of the other. Resilience and adaptability. Again, when I went back to job after my career break, I had to overcome so many negative beliefs, both from the culture perspective that I was brought up with, but also as I said, there is a little bit of um, resistance to people when they have, especially a longer career break, that whether they will fit the job, right? And of course, my confidence was also low. So I had to get over those dysfunctional beliefs and take chances and build myself up. And I had to do the same when I got my job in Oracle, or I was in other places also, because there was an expectation that I had to prepare myself, persevere, and try again, right? Adaptability, the story I would think is from my nonprofit, right? I told you I did all this work, but it was a software work that was being done, right? And these are non-tech people. The first thing, so I had to relearn. The first thing I had to get rid of was the abbreviations. I used abbreviations everywhere. That's what we do. So I had to get rid of it. I had to get rid of the tech world. And I had to actually relearn people management, because here for them, it's not how efficient the process is. It's how, like, I like paper and pencil. I don't like software, right? So I had to tell it to them as to why. And somebody actually, I think it was Anusa, who said, what and why, if you can explain to, and who you can explain, you win 50%. And I think that's what I had to sit down and say, what was their value, and adapt to that language, and succeed. And last, everybody has focused on it, and I'm also going to focus on it. Be kind to yourself. You are enough. When I mean that, I'm not saying, hey, you can think about anything and succeed at anything. Of course you can, but even if you are not going to be the superhero tomorrow, within what we tend to do is we focus on our limitations. I think we should focus on our strength within, and we should know our limitations, but within that, we need to know that we can take baby steps, we can take chances, and we can succeed. So prioritize yourself, prioritize on self-care. I love this book, Designing Your Life, by Bill Barrett and Dave Evans. They have these three things, but with more practical examples. It was been very useful, so I put it up. So these are the few lessons that I learned through my journey. And as I said, I'm again charting my adventure, the next adventure. So I am going to walk my talk. I think about this every day and try to implement. And I hope you guys got something out of it also. Thank you so much.